Well, we just wrapped up a session with CalPERS and their leadership team, and we're going to sit down and ask Steve a few questions just to kind of touch on the highlights of what we talked today. And it was, great energy today, and I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what did you learn on the field as a professional baseball player that you have carried forward into your professional life, and that you, as a coach, even help other leaders develop in? What are the keys?
Well, Keith, there's so many parallels that you can draw between sports and business, and I went through some real tough times as a baseball player. So I had to learn a lot about intestinal fortitude. I had to learn a lot about, even when it seems really bleak, you just can't quit. I mean, if you quit, the answer is no. That's what that is. And so I didn't ever want to be that type. I also learned that from watching other people, that true leadership is done with, by what they and how they carry themselves every day. Not so much what they say, but what they do. And I found that real leadership really lies in that respect. So those were a couple things that I brought forward.
Okay. So the perseverance and leading by example.
Yeah,
two
huge
big
things.
areas.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things you talked about today is leaders of organizations are in the brick lane business. Right, I love that. I love that metaphor, and I'm gonna take that. I'll try and remember to footnote it with Steve Sax.
Yeah.
But no, because oftentimes we get invited into a client site when they're having troubles. There's issues, there's cultural issues, there's breakdown of leadership, but oftentimes they want a quick fix.
Right.
And part of the problem is they haven't been laying bricks for years, and there is no big. So when you talk about brick building, what do you think about? What are the things leaders should be doing on an ongoing basis?
Well, the leadership, I believe, and what I have found, Keith, is that is something that happens over time. When you build the person first, then you can start to build the leader. And that's what I do about the brick style of laying bricks in a positive manner. If you do that over a period of time, you can build a fortress. Well, if you do that over a period of time as well, you can change demeanor levels in people, and confidence levels start to surge, and you can really start to build a big positive nature in people, which lends to leadership. And I just think doing it over a period of time has got a much better chance than saying, here you go, there's the office, go be a leader. It doesn't happen that way.
So there's an intentional effort there that's built into it, into the thought process and the ongoing development.
And it's not only once you get there, once you're in a position that you're going to lead people. The leader has to continue to grow too. It's not just the people grow. The leader has to grow, and if you can grow with your people, it happens all the time. And that's, I think, the best way to look at it is that guys get in a position of leadership, and sometimes they throw it out, or they say, well, I'm there, I don't have to really do it anymore. No, you're really just starting once you become a leader, because you're going to grow a lot over the period of your life. And like I said, our lives aren't static. They're growing all the time. If your life isn't getting better, then it's getting worse. I mean, nothing stays in the middle. You know what that middle level is called? Mediocrity, and if you stay there a long time, you get consumed there. So you got to continue to grow.
Cool. Oh, that's great. The other thing you talked about today is kind of the paralysis due to fear. As a coach, I know you do a lot of executive coaching and business coaching, life coaching. What is it that you help people break through that fear, and so they're not stagnant?
Right. I believe that, as you said, the biggest obstacle in the way of people now is that paralysis caused by the fear of failure. That we're all going to fail. As a matter of fact, I would say that failure is absolutely critical to being successful. I was teammates with Michael Jordan. Remember when he tried to play baseball? He was a great basketball player. But anyway, but he tried to play baseball as a member of the White Sox. I was teammates with him. A month and a half in spring training and a month and a half in Birmingham, Alabama. When I had a bad foot, I had to go down there, so I was teammates with Michael.
Okay.
And he said this on the bus. He said, had it not been for the times where he was cut from his high school basketball team, which he was, had it not been for the times where he shot and missed with the buzzer going off as a member of the Bulls, which he did, and lost some games for them, he said he never would have been as successful. He felt that the road to success went right through the dump. And I believe he's very truthful about that. You got to be able to come back and after failure and challenge it again. And when you're able to challenge it, despite the fact that you might fail, that's the celebration part of it. When you get up and you try it again, you got to celebrate those people.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the differences between business and sports is that in sports it's almost considered just part of it, like, a 300 batting average. But that means
You fail 7 times.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's just, it's almost built into the culture is that
Right.
you are gonna fail, but you gotta get up and do it again.
Right.
And oftentimes, like in business, we expect people to have the perfect plan, the perfect strategy, and get it right the first time.
Right. And sometimes you see parents, and all well-intentioned, mind you.
Sure.
All well-intentioned. They want to protect their kids all the time. If, they get a little bump in a little league team, they're out there, rocking them and all that stuff. And, that's all so well-intentioned though. But the bottom line is, I believe that you have to let your kids, you have to let your workforce, you have to not encourage them to fail, of course, but you have to encourage them to get on it and try it again,
Yeah.
even if they do fail. So in essence, in the whole ball of wax, failure is absolutely critical to being successful.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. What about the new leader? The new leader, oftentimes what we hear when we're working in an organization is, I'm not the CIO, the CEO, the vice president. I don't really have a lot of influence. I can't change the culture here. I can't have a big impact. What's your thoughts on that?
Sure, they can have impact. I really believe they can have an impact. And look, leadership styles, they change over a course of time. I mean, there's no question about it. You talk about the old school type, you talk about the new millennials that are out there and get into positions, and there's discernible differences between the two. I mean, the old school type, they'd be here early and they'd work until 5 o'clock or whatever it may be, and then maybe a little bit afterwards, and then that's it. And you see the millennials, they get in a little bit later, but also they'll go to have dinner and they'll come back and they're here at 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
So sometimes the leadership styles, you can't just say, well, this style's right and this style's wrong. There's some good quality things that you can take from both ways, and it's just the most that you can say about a leader is if this person is maximizing what he does with his team.
Sure.
That's how it all comes down to. If your guy or your woman, your man is really maximizing what they can do in a leadership position with everybody throughout the team, that's what you want.
Yeah.
Right.
What about now? Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. What about the senior leader? And what are your thoughts on them? What are you coaching them to do? Because obviously everyone's looking at them,
Yeah.
right? And by their example. So
Well, one of the things that we talk about in senior leaders is you want to talk about connection and keeping the connection with people. Because sometimes you take advantage, you take it for granted that, oh, well, these people understand, I've been here for a long time, and it's that thing that you kind of take it for granted. That's one thing that we try to impress upon them is this is always something new to every single person that comes in there. And as I said before, in your employees' eyes, your leadership is everything.
Right.
So the way that you carry yourself throughout is going to make a big difference. I think that's one of the things that the long tenured people seem to find in those positions is that, sometimes change is good. I can remember there was a time when I was going through my career and my agent told me I needed to change the way I hit because I was hitting 210 at the All-Star break. And I said, I'm not changing the way I hit. I've been doing this for 10 years. And he said, no, you got to get on top of the plate and pull the ball because they're catching everything on the right side. So I actually did it, and I wound up having one of the best years of my career because I was able to soften up that wall called maybe an ego.
Sure.
And it helped me to take advice from somebody I didn't think I should take it from. And it turned out to be one of the best years of my career. So what I could say in essence about the long-standing leaders is, hey, look, there's always another good way of doing it.
Sure.
Continuing education is a great thing. It's there for a reason.
Yep.
And that's one of the things we talk about with some of that long-term leadership is, continuing ed and changing and these type of things are sometimes a good thing.
Sure. And like you talked about today, even like developing better skills at active listening versus,
Right.
having to feel like you have to have the last word, but being engaged, letting people talk. And you talked about humility too.
Oh, humility is the essence of the whole thing.
Right.
When you have a platform of humility, the door is open, the questions always can be asked. The challenging the status quo sometimes is a good thing because it brings up this huge amount of ideas that come out of people, and the American ingenuity is something that's marveled at throughout the world. And the reason why is because they're able to speak their mind and be a free thinker, and that's what you encourage in your workforce. Is not my way or the highway.
Yeah.
It's everybody's interest in finding out different ways of doing things, questioning what's going on now. You find new ways of doing things. Sometimes you do them better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Last question for you.
Yep.
In your book, you talked about the importance of knowing your why, being passionate and driven. Jim Collins refers to that as a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals in a company,
Yes,
right?
yes.
You've been a successful baseball player, you've had a successful career, you're now a successful speaker, but what is it that drives you now? What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning?
You know, I thought that was a crazy question that I got asked when I was a baseball player. Is a journalist would come up to me and say, how do you get up for a game? And my answer was, I wake up in the morning, feet hit the floor, and boom, I'm ready. You know, I just don't know. I think the reason that I'm driven is because I look, as I ask my clientele to do, look inside your passion center and see what you really love to do. I love helping people. I love to go out and push people forward. I like to maybe maximize the efforts of people and get the most out of them. That's what I love to do as a speaker and as a coach, is to try to get the most out of people, you know, and if I can do that, lend it in some way by a word I might say or a phrase I might catch with them, and then encourage them to do that. You see, you really can't motivate people. I don't believe that anybody can motivate people. The words motivational speaker is kind of really not true. You can inspire people, which could lead to some motivation,
Sure.
but motivation starts from within.
Right.
And if I can spark that in some people, then it's all worth it for me.
Great. Well, I think you sparked some things today, and I
Thank you.
certainly appreciate your words today, your wisdom,
Thank you.
what you brought to the table, and the energy and
Appreciate it.
passion. So thank you,
All right.
Steve.
You betcha.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks,
Have a great
Steve.
day.
Thank you.